Hello and happy Wednesday. Josh here with On the Wrong Lead. Little bit different day, a little bit different location. I'm in a hotel once again. And Yeah, we have a really interesting sequence, I think, coming up here in the all stakes Big Five for Whitney Day. I think there's some interesting races. I think there's some chalky races, and I think if you make the right decisions here, I think there's definitely going to be opportunity for a very, very large payout here. So, I will get started by introducing Mr. Mark Capitan. Apparently, the only other person who decided to show up on time, although I don't think it was necessarily the pretty one's fault this time with what's going on. But how you doing, my man?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. Yeah, the pretty one has some extenuating circumstances which were outside of his control. But no, I'm doing good. Obviously we had a bunch of rain come through today, calling for chance of thunderstorms rest of the week, and then Whitney Day looks like it could be a coin flip for weather. There's like a 50% chance of afternoon thunderstorms. Obviously, I hope this card stays on for multiple reasons. One being there's a lot of good turf races in this sequence. A lot of very, depending on how you approach them, some very interesting sequences. But I think the other side of that is there's also a Naira 2-day all turf pick five that was a takeaway that they had from Belmont Stakes Day, and I guess that they thought that was a really successful wager, and they brought it back for these Friday Saturday cards. So Friday looks good. The last thing you want to do though is be two races in and find out that a race or two come off, those become all legs. That's not fair to the players. That's not good. I mean, obviously, an all legs an all leg, but turning a pick five into a pick three is no fun, and the people are less likely to come play those wagers again. I do think those wagers are a little bit sus to begin with because they do kind of pull in the sharper end of the player pool who are capped a couple of days ahead. But no, I'm excited. The Whitney is stacked, loaded field. And I think the Troy right before it also a stacked loaded field. Now, both of them are going to have some prohibitive short favorites. So, this is one of those sequences where, where do you take a stab and say, hey, I'm going to toss the favorites and try to find prices other places? Do you just single the favorites and move on? There's some fun, handicapper conundrums that you have to sort out here.
Yeah, and I see Uncle Sully coming in hot already, saying Happy Wednesday, 8:03. You guys are a day and a half, an hour early. What kind of chuck wagon bullshit is this? Um, you know, we I'm actually going to be busy tomorrow night. Caleb is probably going to be very well lubricated, and Mark probably hopes to be there as well. So Thursday was
Yeah.
just not going to work out, but the sequence just looked too good, and we want to make sure that we got
We
something
want to
out
make
for
sure.
you guys. And yeah, we'll go ahead and look at
Not
some of
not
these races.
I was saying, not to spoil anything, but both Caleb's up here for Whitney with his family, and so I will be hanging out with those guys along with a bunch of other friends who are in town. So if anybody's around, feel free to ping us, and we'll come say hi. But it should be a fun time had by all, and always entertaining when the Knight family is around, and we you get some arguments with some twang to them.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is our disc golf weekend. So, Mark came and played last time, and then I think he realized that it was Whitney weekend. He's never going to do that again. Uh,
Yep,
but
pretty
uh,
much.
but no, we'll have.
Well, I was. It's also I'm a little bit light on PTO days this year, so taking a couple days off to fly out and go to Whitney was hard. I can work from home, and home just maybe the Cutwater stretch at Saratoga. So
Yeah, but I guess why don't we get started then? We're going to start here with race number 7, the Saratoga Derby Invitational. This is going to be a mile and 3/16 grade 1 here. And your morning line favorite at 2-1 is Diego Velasquez here, shipping in for Aiden O'Brien and Ryan Moore, just recently winning a Group 3 over at Leopardstown. Um, you know, Mark, when I took a look at this race, um, I I looked at the horses that have runs here in the U.S. and I wasn't very taken by any of them, and so maybe I took the lazy approach here, um, and just decided I'm looking at these other horses. I don't like any of them. I'm going to take the new shooter shipping in here for Aiden O'Brien. Ryan Moore gets aboard, and you always like to see when Ryan Moore is riding one of Aiden's horses here. Although we know this isn't the reason that Ryan's here, but he's aboard either way. So I kind of just landed on Diego Velasquez as kind of the class of the field here, winning pretty impressively last time out. But what did you think, Mark?
Really, really tough race. If you're somebody who uses time form, you're going to see the last out figure on the 4, and the horse is just a single, right? But my concern there is, that I don't really know who he was beating. Tarawa is a good is a supposed to be a good horse, but I really don't know who he was beating in that. That was a 51K. Yeah, it's a G3, but it's a 51K race, so it's effectively a glorified allowance race. In the states, and it's at Leopardstown, which is not the classiest of races. That's more the, I don't know, B tier, C tier of Irish racing. So, on that last fig, if you're playing back to that, yeah, the horse is a single. I thought there were some other ways to go in here. I want to get. I've had a thing for Carson's Run for a while. A horse that I think is actually really talented. You're getting the Vinny off angle here and getting the white hot Dylan Davis. My main issue with Carson's Run is the Clement barn is just not firing right now. He's 2 for 27 on the meet. I think he had a couple more runners today, and I don't think he had a winner, so it's probably 2 for 30ish now. And it's very weird to see Clement's barn just being this cold. So I thought Carson's Run and for the same reasons Deterministic were both ones that I wanted to like, but I had a hard time getting there. And I think that's much to Josh's point that there's a lot of horses in here with question marks. You see a race like this, and you expect the Chad to be the your Air A Chad to be in here, and you do have the 8 White Palomino, but the best races out of White Palomino are just substantially too slow to win this. And I don't really know if in whatever from that Belmont Derby to today, if that horse takes enough of a step forward to be a major player in a month. So it's a real hard race. I think you probably end up landing on the two logicals, which were Diego Velasquez, and the other one is the Shig horse, Cogino, which has, I think it's you pronounce it Cogino, who for Arad, the 2 horse. Shig's barn has been a little bit cold as well, but a lot less starters. Nice to see that Arad lands here, but Flavian gets off, so I don't know. I had a really hard time with this one. I guess I'm more against more horses than I am in favor of a lot of horses. You could go a lot of ways in here. I wouldn't fault somebody who looks at this race and goes, okay, Diego Velasquez. I think to your point, Josh, the 4, you single the 4, you move on, and I also wouldn't fault anybody for really kind of landing on anybody else because these are light. So most of these are lightly raced 3-year-olds. There's definitely a step, an opportunity to take a step forward, and yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see how the board sort of manages this race because I have a fair feeling that Diego is gonna be more like 6 to 5 come post time, and that'll probably leave for some value other places.
Yeah, Charles mentioning the bit um, with the largest AEW in the U.S. no longer able
Mm-hmm.
to bet on Naira. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with the pools. Even if you're not a Twin Spires, um, even if you're not a Twin Spires user, those players being in the pool is good for everybody. So, um, yeah, hopefully they get that resolved. Um,
Let me know if that's any
you
better
know,
too, Bob. I just put a little more output on it. So
I will say the horse I did look at the longest, and I was accused of creating a bad ticket yesterday by my co-host Andrew Champagne because I used the first and second choice in the race after I faded the chalk in like the three races before. So, but deterministic is probably the horse in here that I'm most interested in. That uh, race last time out, kind of closed into a bit of a slow pace, and I think we've seen on the turf that it seems to be playing more towards mid pack and kind of off the pace type horses, even with some of these slow paces we've seen. Now, we've seen the occasional race get wired still, but in general, I feel like it's been playing towards the back, and I thought deterministic might be one of the more interesting off the pace horses in here. You figure you're going to take a step forward from that last race. I guess maybe you're a little concerned with the pedigree, not necessarily distance pedigree. You got sprint, Liam's map, which is usually good to about a mile, and then you got Spitestown on the bottom. So maybe you're a little
Well,
concerned about stretching, adding even more distance. You were gonna say, Mark?
isn't deterministic just in here to set up Carson's run? I mean, that's kind of how I read the race. Deterministic is in here to go to the front end, keep the pace honest, keep, I think the one has to go, but probably keep the two company on the front end and really make sure that Carson's run has the pace that he needs to run into because he wants to be that coming from a little bit more off it. Yeah. And to Cobb's point, you maybe get half that, maybe you're getting the hottest turf jock in the country right now. Well, at least on the East Coast, in Flavian Pratt, and I think that I think White Palomino takes a ton of money, and I think that probably deterministic and Carson's run flip as far as odds are concerned, because I'm not really convinced that deterministic's actually a turf horse yet, and I think he's in here as a trial. And I mean, his Manila was a nice race, but you see Dylan get off, and you see Dylan stick with Carson's run. So a lot of questions to really be answered in this one.
All right. Well, why don't we move on then? We're going to go ahead and start with the test here. Race 8. We're going to be going 7 furlongs here for fillies at 3 years old. And Mark, I'll let you take first pass at this. I think our favorite is at 7-5. The four ways and means, but you got some pretty good horses in here. Venom Pearls at 7-2, Emery at 5-2. So yeah, I think it's a pretty decent field. But where did you land?
I think it's an interesting race in the fact that, we're going 7 furlongs and you expect there to be a ton of pace in this type of race. And there's just really no pace to be found in here. I don't really know who ends up going to the lead. Maybe Ways and Means goes if they want to. Somebody like Emery from the rail could also be forwardly placed, but I don't really think Emery wants the lead. I don't. They're normally in these kind of races you have that speedball that they have to go, and there's just not that horse in here. So given that sort of complexion where the pace is really kind of suspect, I think you sort of have to take a horse that wants to be forwardly placed, and Ways and Means makes a ton of sense. I wouldn't fault anybody for going back there. That last out allowance was really nice, but they keep cutting this one back. They obviously tried they tried the Gulfstream Park Oaks Kentucky Oaks route, and then they keep cutting the distance back. I don't know if that's just a case of they're trying to figure out what this one wants to do, or if they think that she's really a 7 furlong horse. And my kind of bet is on the former, that they don't quite know what she is. They know she's talented. They just really haven't figured out what she wants to do yet. I like her, but the horse I was more interested was Emery on the rail, the one. Horses won 4 of 5 starts, has a win going this trip. That top and bottom, and seems to be really a 7 furlong horse. This seems to be like a legit 7 furlong type. And again, if you're a time form person, Emery is very much the horse that you want in here. That last out figure was very impressive. I thought that was a really, really professional effort in the victory ride. And she just kind of has a nose for the wire and seems to get it done. And it seems like she can also wire. She's historically sat just off from hot paces, but I don't think there's any reason that Gaff can't. Gaff can read the form just like we can. Does he just go to the front end with her and say, "Come play, come catch me if you can," and just try to run them off their feet? I think she's very talented, and she's the one that I want the most in this race.
Yeah, I looked at Emery. I looked at Denim and Pearls. Um, Obviously, Ways and Means. I think is a very very worthy favorite. I see Stephen Fox says 10,000 on Ways and Means. Um, okay, Steve. But you know, I ended up landing on a horse that's won at this track, going this trip, and has beaten a horse that you really like. And I'm gonna go here with the Spinaway winner, um, Brightwork. We haven't seen Bright Work since the BC Juvenile Fillies, where she went off at a very very large price after kind of you know um, not running well in the Alcibiades. But I think they're cutting this horse back to I think a distance that they want to go. This is a sprinter, and John Ortiz, not necessarily known so much as being able to get these horses kind of come from this long layoff and have him cranked. But I mean, this horse's run style just I think fits this race to a T because you're gonna get Johnny Velasquez aboard, who we've always heard Matthew DeSantis mention like when he's on a horse and he gets aggressive, it seems like people just let him do his thing. And so Johnny V is going to be posted in post on the outside, but it's post six, and I think he's going to be able to hustle this horse up and yeah, I think this is going to be my top pick in this race. I do think that Ways and Means, depending on how the rest of my ticket structure looks, Ways and Means might be one that um, that still makes tickets as maybe Mark's favorite type of bee, which is the defensive
Defensive B.
bee.
Yep, that's how
Yeah,
it should be on mine.
yeah. Not It's
Yep.
not the honey bee, it's not the queen bee, it's a defensive bee. But yeah, I think that Bright works in here with a big shot, and I would love to bet this horse at 6-1, but
There's no
I
way you
think
can 6 to 1 on her.
you think it'd be
I
a
don't
lot
think so.
shorter.
No, I think she'll take money off that line. I think there's too many things to like about her because, again, I'm looking at Ways and Means and saying Ways and Means feels like a horse that they know is talented. They don't quite know what she is. Brightworks feels like a horse that they went, okay, we tried to make her into a classic distance horse. She's clearly just not one. Let's cut her back to what she wants to be doing, and that's this 6.5, 7 furlong, and these classic one turn types. And I think Brightworks just absolutely screams in here. Now, my concern with Brightwork is I think what you already mentioned. Does she need to start? And
Yeah.
she may. And this is tough company off the long layoff. She needs to take a big step forward off any of the races that she has so far. But she has every right to take that step going 2 to 3. Most horses do make that move forward. So it would not be a shock at all in here. Anyway, were you going to talk about another horse? Because I did want to mention one other in here.
Nope. I'm
Okay.
I'm basically all through Bright work, and then like I said, I think Ways and Means makes a ton of sense in here. I might be a tad sharp for her, but I think makes a bit of sense.
Yeah, the other horse I was a little interested in, and she needs a pace setup, and I don't quite know how she gets it, is the 5 horse, though, My Main Squeeze. She's one that does have a win going this distance. I realize it was in the sloppy 8 Bills track, but she does have a win going everything 6.5 to going everything 6 to a mile. So this should be kind of what she wants to do. Another one of these ones that they tried to stretch her out, and just they've realized she's not a classic distance horse. You cut her back to 7, where she's running these one turn types. There's a lot of these races, and this is a good move for Maker. Louis takes the mount who had the win on her in the 8 Bells, and I realize Louis is having a bit of a rough meet. He's gotten a couple more wins though, and I think this is the type. Now she again probably like a Bright Work needs the right. I don't know if she necessarily needs help in front of her, but My Main Squeeze is probably better if there's a little more pace in front of her to fire into. And what I've seen sometimes happen, and the reason that I do want to have a little bit to her, A, I think she drifts up off that 5-1 morning line. B, I think she's your late pace. So if they're, she's your one that's going to be closing late. If you can, as long as it's not a railroad track. But the third thing is sometimes jockeys read the form too. And when a bunch of jockeys are looking for him saying, "Oh, there's no pace," well, let me be aggressive with this horse that's never been on the lead before, because no one in this race has. And does somebody just do a couple of the horses on the inside decide, hey, let's be aggressive and go and create that pace to set up my main squeeze? So we'll see. But oh wow, that's an interesting plot. Right? Okay, very very interesting. Okay,
Yeah. So the reason I brought the plot up is the reason I brought the plot up is when you started
yeah,
talking about my main squeeze, I like hasn't been on the lead, but I mean plots out pretty nicely. If we don't know if Bright Work is gonna
is
gonna really
yeah.
hustle, or I can kind of see an
Could
argument
Louis go?
for
Could
the
Louis
pot.
get aggressive with her? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. So
I wasn't actually
I
thinking that.
want
I, I, I
I
the
just
trip
wanted
I
to
was
show you
thinking
that
was
just
no, no, that's very cool. Well, the trip I was thinking for her was if somebody, if like let's say Ways and Means, Bright Work, and Emery all kind of decide they're going to be aggressive. She's at that pocket trip. That's what I was hoping would happen. But actually, on the plot there, maybe she can be a little more aggressive. And Uncle Sully hitting you where it hurts.
you know what though, you know why I like this, because it means somebody else listened to Drinking Champagne.
It does.
So,
It does.
so I do appreciate you, Uncle Sully. Thank you. Oh man. No, and it, I was talking with Brian, who I'm here at disc golf with. Um, I was just like, it's nice. I got this built-in break to kind of recover from the tilt that was last week. So I didn't look at a single race today. Um, I'm going to play the pick five tomorrow since I already have it capped. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, I'll be busy with tournament stuff, so I probably will not be able to play. So nice to have a little bit of built-in break. But
Yeah.
yeah, I wanted to show you the plot. I thought it was super interesting.
Very
Um,
cool.
Anything else on this race you want to talk about?
No, I think we've talked to everybody. I think Denim and Pearls is the only horse we haven't really talked about. Who I wasn't super high on Denim and Pearls, so probably put it right in the winner's circle there.
All right. Well, that's going to move us to race 9 here, the Lure. 135K going a mile and 16th. Mark, I saw that this was on the card, before on Equibase. And, I really, it really made me wish I had the same type of encyclopedic knowledge that Road Warrior does for stakes races in New York, because I got this race mixed up with the quick call, because I kept on thinking,
Oh,
"Oh, it's a turf sprint. It's a turf sprint. It's a turf sprint." And then I open up the form because I see the horses in here. I'm like, "Why are these horses all sprinting?" And then I realize, "Oh, no, that's the quick call I'm thinking of, not the lure."
dude,
But
I have the same thing. There's so many of these names, like though I always get like, there's a lot of local towns that are named after, the Glens Falls, the Lake George, the Schuylerville, all those, and I get those all confused all the time. So no, it's yeah.
yeah, but this race shows the return of More Than Looks. Finished sixth in the BC Mile last year. Had some really really nice races last year. And coming off that long layoff for Sherry DeVoe, Irad Ortiz aboard, getting 2-1 on the morning line. I think looks good in this spot, but doesn't look unbeatable. It's going to be interesting to see how this board plays out. I see 2-1 on the 9. I think one of the other top choices here, the 4 Irish Aces, I think for Brendan Walsh, it is another one that makes a bunch of sense. Came off the bench to in the Muniz, then came off the bench to run. They keep on trying these stakes races off the bench, and now I think he's finally getting this horse third off the layoff, coming into one of these bigger races. And not that this horse hasn't fired fresh. I think both his 2 wins were fresh, but um, I like to see that horse third off the layoff. It's the closer type, which I think fits the track profile as of late at Saratoga. And I do think that not that there's a ton of pace in here because there never is in New York. But I think the three is going to show some speed. I think the two Forever Super, who's another horse I actually like, I think is going to show some speed. Even the one Cooper has shown to kind of be a little bit forwardly placed. The five Big Everest. Uh, it seems like you have a few horses that are going to want to get forward, and I really think a horse like Irish Aces, I think is going to fit. I think with the trip that's going to win here. So I like Irish Aces, and obviously I like the nine more than looks. Maybe you're a little bit worried about the layoff, but I mean this horse looked great last year, and I think this is another one that fits the track profile. I think going forward right now. So um, I have one B and a two, but I'll let you go first, Mark. Where did you land?
I'm not going to say anything super creative here. I think More Than Looks is probably a lone A for me in this spot. Sherry DeVoe's barn's absolutely been on fire. She's hitting at 30% on the meet. She's 30% off the long layoff. And she's 50% when she puts a rat up in the past year. So those are all good numbers. I do not think they had any desire to be as far back as they were in the Breeders' Cup Mile. I think that was Rosario doing Rosario things, and they're and not quite getting there in the lane. Um, I think that Rosario no longer has the mount for a reason. I don't know why it took him so long to get her back. I wonder if there was some sort of issue or something was going on. You would have expected that she would have maybe reappeared Keeneland in the spring and got a race into her or getting a list going, but it looks like they're probably ramping her up for a fall campaign. So I would imagine we're going to see her quite a bit of her. And rumor mill has it that she has been training like an absolute freight train in the mornings, and she's training extremely well. I think this is probably one of those horses you just kind of single and move on. I do agree with Josh. Iris Aces makes some sense. I like Big Everest in here, but again, with Big Everest has my whole Clement sort of try to figure out what's going on with his barn. And then there's some other horses that I have thought were going to be a thing. Somebody like a Kubrick, on the rail, who I think is one of these Chads that shipped over, and we're like, oh, this is going to be such a good horse. That option 100 at Tampa with Vinny up looked really good, and then he has just disappointed in his last two. Where and like really bad. So you know. Th- I think there's just a lot of horses in here again with questions. And I think you just kind of lean on More Than Looks, and I think in this sequence, I think that's probably the second most likely winner. So
Yeah. The only other horse that I did have some interest in was the two Forever Super, and you know the reason why is because anytime there is a turf route in New York, there is a chance for the Naira Special.
mm-hmm.
And I think if there is a Naira Special here, I think JJ drawn inside with a horse that's got tactical speed like Forever Super does, I think maybe he can get out in front and possibly steal this. So I keep on saying about how the track, has been playing for closers, but you know, speed can always be dangerous, and never leave it, never be surprised when you see 51, 52 for the half, and you're wondering what the heck is going on. But
Yeah, I do have Forever Super marked down. I don't know how I want to use the horse. Probably BC line, kind of horse. But I do agree with the same thing. Is there a chance that Javi gets aggressive with this one? I thought there were others that were more likely to show speed in here. Maybe somebody like the three Swift Sure, somebody like Big Everest gets aggressive. Maybe even somebody like Johnny's Fireball the six gets really aggressive. I thought those were more likely to go than the two, but it wouldn't shock me if Hobby's a little bit aggressive, tries to get that inside position, and yeah. He's done that before. Now let's see how speed is on the turf. We know so far this meet has been pretty bad. So if speed's still bad, then you just kind of toss.
all right, let's move on then. Here, we're gonna start at race 10 here, the Troy Grade 2 for 5.5 furlongs. And if you guys wonder why I'm stumbling, it's because I'm writing down these damn timestamps for Cobb so he can go back and.
Cobb gets super angry when you don't give him his timestamp so he can come back to see the races.
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing it the last couple of times, and uh, I hope he's appreciated, he's liked and subscribed, hopefully, like all you fine viewers are doing right now, I bet. But race 10, the Troy. We're gonna be going 5.5 furlongs, and this is the return of Cogburn, 4 to 5 on the morning
Return?
line.
What do you mean
Um,
return? He ran a month
return of
ago.
Cogburn, huh?
He ran a month ago.
Yeah, I know. So he's back, but he's back here at Saratoga running again, as opposed to what was the race last week? The turf sprint.
Oh,
I don't remember.
yeah, the black type race that we
Yeah,
allowed
it
Rooney to
was
do.
like not a good race, and then
For
everyone's
well, it's
like,
not
"Oh
Forbidden
goodness!"
Apple.
Like,
It's yeah, okay, yeah.
yeah, it was not a good race though. But yeah, Cogburn here at 4 to 5, and Mark. I mean, I had a heck of a time trying to figure out who beat Cogburn in this race. Um,
I
you,
think
you're
the
you're making a
only
look, and
the
maybe you have an idea.
No, I think that this is the most likely single of this sequence.
Okay.
I think the only way that Cogburn gets beat is if speed is extremely bad on the turf. And we just got some rain, and to me, normally Saratoga, when you get some rain, it moves up speed on the turf. So this should make Cogburn better. And he's been really freaking good. They finally figured out that he's not a dirt horse. They put him on turf, and ever since then, he's only had one bad race. And that was at Kentucky Downs, where they were going probably a little further than he actually wants to go. And we also know Kentucky Downs plays a little further in those sprints. So that 6 furlongs is more like a 7 furlong race, and that's just not what Cogburn wants to do. At 5.5, he is perfect. He's perfect 2 for 2 across the Saratoga Strip. And he just keeps getting better and better. Figures keep improving slowly. And the thing is, you probably don't even need the best out of Cogburn. He can probably on time form figs run 10 points slower than he did in the Jaipur, and probably still win this race. He absolutely towers over this field. He should get out on the front end, get all sorts of loose. He's like a 4 cherry horse, and yeah, I have a hard time getting around him, and so and not that I want to talk to death. I'll let you go for a minute, but I think how I looked at this race was you loan a Cogburn and then you take some big prices underneath, which was my approach.
Yeah, I really had a hard time looking for anything else. The only other two horses that I thought maybe had a shot in here, the three Dancing Buck, drawn on the inside. Um, I don't really know what the plan was last time out when they went, you know, eighth. They pulled back by 3 lengths. If you look at this horse's PPs, I mean, this horse has always been on the lead or right close to the lead. So I don't know if that was a change in tactics, if there was problems getting out of the gate. You kind of get this weird. I was going to say it's almost like a Z pattern, but it's like a W pattern. I don't even know what happened that race. And if you just look at the numbers and look at the pace figures and you look at where the running lines, this this is a horse that could maybe end up right there on the lead with Cogburn, and is drawn inside, and I think might just be one to kind of keep an eye on for possible bias play, possible underneath play. I think if it is playing super speed favoring, all right, and guess what? You know who you use underneath Cogburn? You got Dancing Buck right there. Bam, easy
Yep.
exacta. So I really like Dancing Buck here, but like I said, I have B with a question mark because I don't even know if I'm going to use him. It was just maybe just more of an underneath type there. Um, Same thing with the one Mischief Magic. You know, has run 3 times here in the U.S. and hasn't has yet to win. But has lost to Cogburn twice and lost to Arzak um, once. And you know, this is just, once again, just kind of a bias play. This is a horse that has shown a pretty decent closing kick. Um, you know, I think the thing you got to be a little bit more concerned about is this horse doesn't like to get out of the gate fast. I mean, we're talking that first call is already 7 lengths behind in a 5.5 furlong race. And it's tough to win a 5.5 furlong race like that unless you're, um, oh my goodness, I'm forgetting that filly's name. Uh, Joel Rosario Rotor. I'll remember. Um, I want to say Australia, but that's not Australia. I think maybe it was. I don't
I'm so
remember.
bad with names,
Figure it
man.
out.
I'm just terrible with them.
I
So
know,
I'm
I
not
know.
gonna
You
be
can't
helpful.
pronounce them. You can't remember them.
Can't pronounce them.
Cobb is
Can't
saying
remember
Warlike
them.
Goddess because I think he wants to just like he just wants to trigger
Trigger Dave.
Ryder Dave. Yeah.
Oh,
Oh,
poor
goodness.
Dave.
But yeah, I just this wasn't real creative for me. I mean, I basically landed on Cogburn and two others. You said you had some prices that you liked.
Yeah, I had a couple prices that I did like. You know, the two that I was most interested in were the 5 horse Mischievous Angel, and again these are like C type horses. I'm probably ACing this race, and I'll put a couple of stupid prices. Angel is at least a very lightly raced horse, has a bit of an every other type of pattern. Was in the Chad Brown barn, and then has come out of it. Huge step up in class here, but this is a horse that all 4 of the first starts have seen an improvement in form and improvement in speed figures, at least on what I'm looking at. So, horse needs to take a massive step forward here. I'm not going to try to not going to try to say it any other way. Huge step forward would be required here, but at least with this one, you don't know what the ceiling is, and sometimes those are fun types to take at big prices. The other horse I'm a little interested in that I think is a more likely bomb is the 9 horse Sousa Summer. Um, if you look at Sousa Summer's form, yeah, this is a 4 for 23 horse, but 3 of those 4 wins came at Saratoga, and I think all 3 of them were this. Yeah, all 4 wins were at 5.5, and so 3 of those wins were Saratoga going 5.5. And if you scroll back to last year, right around this time, it was end of August, not beginning of August. No, I'm sorry, 27th of July. So right around this time of the year, won a $115,000 allowance at Saratoga with the one and only Joel Rosario, who takes them out today. Now I'm digging to create a price. I'm getting super creative here. Another horse that needs to take a step forward. But Bill Mott spots his horses really well. I think you can kind of draw it. There's a lot of horses who were supposed to run a lot better than they did that came out of that Jaipur. You saw a lot of horses that normally put up good speed figures and just tossed duds in that race. So, aberrant race, I think you draw a line through it, and something clearly went wrong in that Shakertown at beginning of the year, the Arzak race. So, if you're willing to put a couple lines to those last 2 races, look back, realize maybe this is a horse for course, maybe this is a horse that likes when they move north. There are certain horses that just train really well at Saratoga during the summer and really like this surface. There's a chance this is one of those. Now, more than likely, this is not a horse you put on top. This is a horse that's, fills out the second or, third little rung of your try. But at a price, there are worse ways to go.
Caleb, your first question is name the Joel Rosario horse that he won the Jaipur on that just came from the absolute clouds.
The horse Rosario won the Jaipur on that came from the clouds.
Yeah, it was a filly
Um,
or mare, Australian.
Oh, it was the pregnant horse.
Yeah,
Oh, what was her name? Alexandra.
there we go. Thank you, Mark.
That
We would have
horse.
never got there.
Oh, no, we would have never got there because I
We would
still
have never
don't know
got
what
there.
this is. Oh, Alexandra
Um,
with the spelled with an O.
Yeah,
Okay.
OLE.
yes,
Yeah, Alexandra.
Oh, I remember that
Alexandra.
horse.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Caleb,
By the way,
how did you beat
Cobb, this is why
Cogburn
we
here?
this is why we keep Caleb around. Um,
What's the question?
how do you
How
beat
did we beat
Cogburn?
Cogburn here?
Um, how do you beat Cogburn? Which race is Cogburn? That's a good first one. I'm catching up.
Race 10, the try.
Race 10. We're on race 10 after 9 minutes.
Well, we got on to 8, so
We got on an
Oh, I
8.
thought
Remember?
Oh, I thought it was 8:30. Oh my God.
So
We
he's got a
moved the
really good
time.
memory for the names of horses, just
Uh,
at the time we told him we're starting a stream.
okay, in fairness, Caleb was traveling all day, and
Yeah.
then then had to go grocery shopping last minute. So,
Yes.
uh,
I don't think you beat Cogburn really. I think the only way he's probably vulnerable is if he reacts to those two very, very big races he's run in his past two. I mean, he is a 5-year old. Yeah, those are two big numbers. I think if you think that maybe he just uses the dirty B word and bounces a little bit, I think there's I think he beats himself more than anybody else actually beats him. Um, at which point I would look towards a horse like maybe the 8 grooms all business. I think someone who can get involved early, I think, is one that's going to be a little more dangerous because I don't see a ton of speed in here. So looking at a horse like him, or maybe even the Dancing Buck, a horse like that, maybe the Ghost of Big Invasion comes back, but I do think it'll be tough to beat Cogburn.
all right, did you want to go through your previous race picks, or should we do that at
Uh,
the end?
we can do it at the end.
Okay. Anything else on this race, Mark? You want to talk about?
No, not really. I mean, I thought this was kind of I don't want to say a boring race, but I think it's pretty logical. So
All right. Well, that's going to bring us to the big one. We were actually on time, and Caleb is like, what the heck? Oh man, that's what happens when we try and stream on a Wednesday. But the Grade One Whitney here, we're going to be going a mile in the eighth on the dirt, and your morning line favorite is the 3 National Treasure. Surprise, surprise. I have the letter A written down next to this horse. And I don't have very many other letters written anywhere else. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think this race starts and stops with National Treasure. Won the Met Mile last time out, just in an absolute laugher. And yeah, I just really, really have a hard time looking past this horse in the spot. I just think that the chances that this horse is getting the trip of dreams, drawn in the 3 post as the inside drawn speed here. I mean, I have a hard time seeing any way that National Treasure doesn't just get to the lead and have it all his own way, which tends to be the only way he wins. You look at the Saudi Cup. I think he had a bit of a tougher trip in that race, and yeah, I think it's also that weird one turn. I think mile and a eighth. So, maybe that kind of not having that second turn maybe didn't give him enough time to position. I'm not really sure, but uh, I think he's just got another good shot to just have it all his own way here, and he's my top pick in this spot, which isn't super super creative. But Caleb, did you have a different opinion here?
Yes and no. I do agree with you that National Treasure is your most likely winner. I don't think that's overly clever, but I think that is the way that the race kind of sets up. And he's been very good. As a 4-year-old, he seems to have taken that step forward where he wasn't maybe quite as good at 3. So I think he is your likeliest winner. There is a horse in here that I know Mark also likes, but I'm also a fan of in here, which probably doesn't bode well for his chances. But
no, it probably doesn't.
yeah, so, I do like the number 9 Bright Future quite a bit. So this is a horse that I wasn't really crazy about most of last year, truth be told. It kind of felt like the connections didn't really know what to do with him. They try stretching him way out into the super dirt marathons. That didn't exactly work. They cut him back a little bit. And then all of a sudden, towards the end of last year, he really just seems like he put it together. And that's not totally out of character for a lot of Curlin progeny. They tend to mature a little bit later and get better with age. And Vino Rosso being kind of the obvious example there. This is a horse here that's 2 for 2 at Saratoga, is proven at a mile and a quarter, so should have no trouble with a mile and an eighth. And his Salvatore mile, well, it didn't come back crazy fast. I thought that he ran a good race there. He kind of got shuffled back, ran a bit of a Z pattern into a slow pace, and then was able to eventually rally and win pretty commandingly. He was supposed to win that day. He was even money, 6-5. So, it's hard to give him too much credit, but it's the kind of race that you want to see from a horse coming off a big layoff and taking a bit of adversity, still getting the job done, and in a race that I think is maybe lacking in star power, but very competitive. I think Bright Future is one that might just finally be putting all together at the right time.
Yeah, I mean, I think National Treasure's your likeliest winner. I think we probably all agree on that. But National Treasure has had a couple times where he's thrown some head scratching clunkers that you just kind of go, oh, where'd that come from? I mean, I thought his Travers last year was pretty poor, given the fact that everybody's talking about, oh, this is the Baffert and he's shipping in and he's supposed to run well, and then also, his what the Saudi Cup was definitely a subpar performance. What you're expecting more out of him, and I think on paper, yeah, he gets away with murder on the front end. But I wonder if some horses like maybe like Tumbarumba or somebody like a Arthur's Ride at least keep him honest on the front end. Both of those horses have historically wanted to be either on the engine or forwardly placed, and they maybe they keep National Treasure a little company on the front end, and he doesn't get as comfortable as he might need to get. And again, I think it was Josh's point. He may be the type that just needs to get super loose on the front end to be able to run his best stuff. So he's your most likely winner. I'm not going to try to go, any other place, or try to, say anybody else is a likelier winner than him. The two others that I'm a little interested in though are, Caleb mentioned Bright Future. I like Bright Future for all the reasons that Caleb mentioned him, and I actually even liked him in the Breeders' Cup Classic a little last year until White Abario did White Abario things. And the other horse I was a little interested in is First Mission, who, if you look at some of his races, something like his Essex actually fits pretty well, with some of the races that somebody like, Bright Future has run. When he brings his best stuff, he runs pretty good races. I think he's rounding into form. Churchill Shippers have been running pretty well. Has every right to keep taking small steps forward as a 4-year-old now, and I think that First Mission is a pretty logical, interesting player here, but he's also shown that he doesn't desperately need the lead. He could sit just off from the pace that that a couple of them may create in here, kind of sit that pocket trip and maybe get first run on somebody who's softened up the Baffert a little bit for him. So.
Yeah, I guess my question with First Mission is, doesn't it kind of feel like he's dodged a lot of the major players throughout his
Totally.
career?
Oh,
I mean,
totally.
he skips the Derby Trail, he goes to the Lexington, and then he runs optional 80. The one time he stepped up to true Grade One company, he finished out the back, and yeah, he runs big numbers, but I just I hate to say the intangibles or the heart or whatever, because I don't know if that's what it really is, but it just feels like he runs big numbers beating up on bad fields. I mean, he ran that big fig two back in the Ali Shiba, beating Tio St. Dennis, who was the Japanese horse that was 90-1 or something, and almost stole the race. And so I don't know. I mean, what is likely going to be the second pick? I think he's one I'd probably try to get around just because I don't seem to
Yeah.
love the quality of his wins, but he does have good numbers, so he's a tough call for me.
Yeah, I would very much agree with you. He's a horse that, if I was playing a double or a pick three, I probably don't use. If I'm playing something like a pick five, you'd be pissed off if he beats you as second choice and you have the rest of the sequence where you find some prices. So, yeah, and somebody mentioned Arthur's Ride. Yeah, that last race was really freaking good. It's just a matter with him of where did that come from, because that is a huge performance, a huge move forward off what he's ever run. Is this one of those slowly developing Belmont types who, and I realize he's got some nice wins, but that he won't, and I think also Caleb is going to probably make a comment about how when a horse wins by 12 lengths, do you kind of head scratch the figure, and is that figure a little bit suspect? And I wouldn't disagree with that. And I also think, again, that B word that we were talking about earlier on a couple other horses, does he bounce here? So he's an interesting fresh face. He's lightly raced. We don't really know how much better he can get. But in an interesting betting race, he's an interesting player here.
Yeah, I tend to. Mark kind of knows me. I mean, and I'm going to be a couple bit skeptical of that figure. And
Yeah,
even if he doesn't bounce, I just don't know if it's a good figure. Maybe he doesn't run back to it. If it's a bad figure, then obviously, maybe it was bias aided that day at Saratoga. But always weird when you get a race where the first place horse is a dozen lengths clear of the second place horse, who's 8 lengths clear of the third place horse, who's six. I mean, an extremely strung out field. I mean, it's got to be a difficult race to make figures for. So I think that's one I'd be a little bit skeptical of.
yep.
Normally, too, I there's a book. Um, oh my goodness, what the heck is the name of the book? It's the Mike Maloney book, or Mike? Yeah, is Mike Maloney? Mike Mahoney? The
Betting
one
with
he
an
did with
edge.
PPF? Yeah, betting with Nedge. Thank you. And he says specifically about these types of races, when you see those strung out fields and you see those big lengths, that generally is a like alarm sign for a bias.
Yep.
So, you know
That
that. Go
7th of
ahead.
June, yeah, that was at Belmont Stakes Festival where the
Yeah,
track was crazy speed biased as well. So
yeah.
yeah, and so I think that leads into what you're talking about. So you guys haven't made me make a case for charge it yet, huh?
I was waiting.
No, go for it. Yeah, I'll let you make a case for Charger before I try and make a case for Disarm. So
I think no, you're gonna make a case for Skippy Longstockings. You're gonna have to. We're gonna make a rule about that.
um,
I think would charge it. He'll be a C on my ticket. I've always kind of had a soft spot for him. I think Caleb once said you're never supposed to talk people off of 30 to 1. So we'll go with that. If he can find his suburban form from a year ago, he's an interesting player in here, right? But he's just been super suspect since. Second off the layoff here, every time he shows up, he's way over bet based on his chances of winning. And I think you're finally going to get a fair price on him here. I think he's probably going to literally be 30 to 1 in this race, 25-31. I think the morning line's pretty good. He's a horse that has shown he's an epic head case, but also that there's a lot of talent there if he can put it together on the big stage on the big day. So if he can somehow find his Suburban's form from last year, he's an interesting player in this spot. Um, I bet worse 30 to 1s.
I mean, have you? I was giving
I
Caleb
can't
room
name
to I
one.
was giving Caleb room to for him to jump in and say something, but
I mean, charge it. I don't think you can win this race, but if you're going to bet a 30 to 1 and there's a race on the form you can point to that you think wins this race, then I guess it's not the worst 30 to 1. I mean, even if that came under extremely dubious and thus far non-repeatable
Not
conditions.
repeatable conditions. Yeah, you implying that fig might be a little sus. Yeah, you probably are.
I don't think
And
it's
you're
a sus
not.
fig. I think it's just an aberrational performance.
um,
But Josh, talking about Disarm, because I actually like Disarm a little bit too.
yeah,
Oh
you know
God.
what, Disarm. I think that this horse has done his best running when he's been kind of sitting in that couple lengths off the lead, and I kind of feel like there's going to be enough speed here where I think he kind of sits a nice mid pack type trip. And if you've looked at some of his last races or his earlier races in 2023, I mean, he was making up some significant ground in like that Matt Wynn, the Jim Dandy, the Travers. He made up some ground. So I definitely think that he's got some talent, and he obviously won that race going wire to wire. But look at those fractions at Churchill Downs
Yeah.
of all places. Like he did not want to be there. He just got there. They just gave it to him. So kind of a weird weird pattern last race in that Stephen Foster. Probably should have run better than he did. Got off a little slow there, and I don't know if they just wrapped him up or what, but it definitely was just kind of a disappointing effort last time. But yeah, if you're a believer in optics, I'll tell you, man, he looks pretty decent sitting right in the middle of the whole plot. Now, obviously, you see National Treasure almost off the chart up and to the left, and if you've ever seen me make insanely large win bets, um, I believe Caleb actually one time even messaged the group after he looked at optics. He's like, Josh is about to make the most irresponsible bet of his entire life today. I already know it. And it was just this one horse all the way up in Q1.
Uh,
But that horse did not win, by the way. Mark,
I,
what were you saying?
I gotta ask, if you're making a case for disarm here, don't you also have to make an equal case for Warrior Johnny or post time, just
I
given the
mean,
props?
you do, and I'll tell you what,
So
man. I'll tell you what, man. Warrior, I don't know what it is about that Briz number, but I'm pretty sure Warrior Johnny's Briz fig last time out is like just like insanely good. Yeah, a 111. National Treasure has not run a 111 yet. So I don't know what's DRF got that last race at.
for Warrior Johnny, they have him
Yeah.
as a 90 and 98, and on
Okay, so
time,
still too slow.
and he's a 116 on time for him. National Treasure's
Yeah.
last out was a 132, so
Yeah.
he needs six.
So
He needs 16 points, right?
time form broke
Yeah.
that race out from Warrior Johnny. I think the raw number
Yeah.
probably did come back quite fast, which would support the Brisnet notion of a very fast figure. Whereas it looks like time
Yeah.
form broke that out, said the track changed, and then lowered the number. So it'll be interesting to see. I don't know if there's been many runbacks from that race that would kind of validate the figure or suggest maybe, yeah, zero runbacks, so hard to say, but you'll get a price.
Yeah, and so yeah, Warrior Johnny was a horse I looked at. Obviously, I think Disarm sits really well here, and then I thought the one post time based off the kind of optics plot was worth taking a look at. Um, and when I look at the traditional PPs here, um, the figures in here on Briz, they kind of fit. I ran second to National Treasure last time out, and if you think that maybe I don't know the track doesn't play as speed favoring as it did that day, and it's playing a little bit more fair, maybe that's enough to make up a couple of lengths, or but. Yeah, I don't know. I thought post time's probably more of just an underneath play. You're getting 20-1. You know that they're going to be closing late, and they've made up ground on this track before. So I thought post time made a bit of sense. Disarm I really liked, and then obviously I'll be National Treasure. But Caleb, who else did you like in here?
You kind of covered the other two that I liked, honestly, Josh. I like National Treasure and Bright Future probably is the top two. Nothing crazy there. But Disarm and Post Time would be my next two. And Post Time in particular, I think, is a horse that I don't really know, how he'll handle the 9 furlongs. He's never really been tested going 2 turns before. But his Metropolitan, his Met Mile was really good. Yeah, he was beaten a dozen or half a dozen lengths by National Treasure, but that was a merry-go-round race where National Treasure just kind of had everything his own way on the front end and absolutely freaked. No other horse changed position at all during this race. And post time went from essentially last to pass everybody in the field except for National Treasure. So I thought that was a nice race. I thought he actually should have won the Westchester 2 back at Aqueduct. Sheldon Russell absolutely fell asleep at the wheel, just got going way too late and let Messier steal it. He still finished, 3 lengths clear of Charge It. So I think post time in here is really interesting. I'm always skeptical of these late running closers going a 1 turn distance, stretching out to 2 turns, because it doesn't always translate the way that you would intuitively think. But there's no reason, based on the pedigree, to think that he can't get a mile and an eighth. And the way he finishes off his races, I think, is pretty nice. So he is one in here that I think is that I like, and I would like a hell of a lot more with anybody besides Sheldon Russell. But here we are.
Isn't he the one that
Did
Matt DeSantis said Sheldon Russell rides him like he's riding Secretariat?
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's the most
I think that was the
confident
analogy. Yeah.
slash
Bonehead.
disinterested
Yeah.
ride you could ever. I mean,
Yeah.
like, was never winning the Met Mile, but absolutely should have won the Westchester with a little bit of effort.
dude, can you believe
I
it's 2024 and we're talking about Messier?
No. What was it? What was the other half of that dynamic duo? Tava.
But
Whatever
it's
happened to him?
oh, I
God.
don't know. Dude, I was talking because there's who's the horse? Let me pull up the PPs. I was just talking about another all-time awful Baffert horse, Spielberg. Remember Spielberg?
Mm,
Because I saw Kubrick was in here, I'm like, all right, no more naming, these after filmmakers, please. Like, just burning money there. But now, Disarm. Why did you like Disarm in here?
I thought this arm looked like he was getting. Yeah, he wasn't the flashiest 3-year-old colt, but I thought he was actually improving with each and every start. I thought his Travers was extremely good. As Matt win, he did what he was supposed to in that race as well in the win, and then he came back and he showed a new dimension in that he raced right off the layoff in the optional 80 at Churchill. I don't have any, you know, illusion that he's going to be on the lead in this race, but he's no longer this one-dimensional closer. Kind of to your point, Josh, he does seem to run a little bit better when he can be more mid-pack. And admittedly, I don't know what happened in that last race. The Stephen Foster was pretty bad for him. Time Form has a note that said he was studdish pre-race. Maybe he just wasn't feeling it that day. Maybe something just he wasn't himself. But it's kind of very it sticks out as almost being too bad relative to the rest of the races on his resume. And even with that, Time Form does have it as an improvement over his optional 80, which I'm not sure how much I believe. But regardless, he does seem to be trending the right direction on a number standpoint, and he does have a couple of numbers from his 3-year-old campaign that put him in the conversation here. So he's one that I do think third off the layoff, showing a little more maturity, a little more versatility. Um, really, I think he has a chance. Maybe more of a C type, like you have him marked. But it's crazy that some of these other horses are only 4-year-olds. Because I was about to
Mm-hmm.
make the comment like, "Oh, I've seen enough of like I Miracolo and Toomba Roomba and Skippy Longstocking, and like they're really not that old. They're like 4-year-old, and then 5-year-old for Skippy. Like it isn't like these are 8-year-old horses, but it just feels like I've seen them a ton. By and large, a lot of these horses like First Mission, Ir Miracolo, Tuba Roomba kind of take turns beating each other. So I'm not super high on any of them. You can probably put Krupi in that mix as well. So looking for more of a maybe slightly less exposed outsider. I am looking towards horses like Post Time, maybe Disarm, maybe, and then maybe even a horse like Warrior Johnny. I mean, if you believe the last race, I think you get paid to find out.
Yeah, I'm not going to beat you guys up over Post Time or Warrior Johnny. I thought was Disarm sort of. I don't think he can win. If you want to say he could clunk up in second or third, not a problem. I don't hate that take, but he seems like the kind of horse that's been a little class exposed. Whenever they step him up, he doesn't kind of run his A game. He just sort of kind of, well, I don't know, a little more of a plotter, but he seems to win when in those sort of optional, in for or optional claiming sort of race types. So
Isn't he
What?
just the same thing as First Mission, but 3 times the price?
First Mission, who won the Elishiba, the Essex, which are both graded stakes. No, I don't really think he is. I think he has a lot more chance of
He won a
winning now.
grade 2, a soft ass grade 2, and a grade 3. You disarm one.
In
What is
the
it?
in the slop, like in the
I mean,
slop
you're adding
Alice.
a lot of qualifiers here, and on number power alone, disarm's actually faster than First Mission. So I mean, on time form anyway.
Yeah, okay, okay. I'll give it to you. I don't hate it. I don't hate it. I
I'm
wouldn't
just
bet
saying,
it.
even heads
I
up,
wouldn't
yeah,
bet it
I'd
with your
probably
money,
take
but
first. Yeah, I mean, heads up, I'd probably take First Mission at if at 50-50. But if you're going to give me, I don't think you get 3 times the price, but even twice the price, I think disarm is a much better bet and offers much better value.
I mean you're gonna get more price. But I think I know what Disarm is. First Mission maybe still has a little more. I don't know. You're probably right. You're probably right. They're probably both equally terrible wagers.
You were saying, Josh? Sorry.
Um, I was saying, why don't we get to your other the picks from the races that you missed? I'll let you talk briefly before we log off here. Scroll up to race 7, which is the Saratoga Derby Invitational. Where did you land, Caleb?
Yeah, I'll go quickly. I don't really want anybody coming out of the Belmont Derby. I I don't think a whole lot of Tricari. I think less of White Palomino. And if Legend of Time, couldn't get the job done there and barely got it done two back, but I just don't think any of those horses are all that good. None of them really seem to be improving. So I'm looking for outsiders. The obvious candidate is Diego Velasquez, who's coming off of a huge win at Leopardstown, but seems to only perform when he's in Ireland. So it sort of remains to be seen how he's going to take his game on the road here. But you could also argue that a lot of those races he didn't show up were on pretty heavy ground, and hopefully that won't be the case for Saturday. So I think he's the most likely winner. And then I looked at some of the outsiders who aren't exiting those kind of the Belmont Derby. So horses like the 5 Deterministic. I gave a glance to like the 6 Carson's Run, for example. I even gave the 1 Izzy Oro a shot because I didn't really see any speed in this race. And White Palomino might go. I mean, it certainly would make sense, but it almost seems like Izzy Oro has no option to go. And it's the kind of horse I can see Castellano getting aggressive with. And in a field that I don't think was all that strong, I mean, I wouldn't be totally surprised to see that horse go out there and try to steal it. So yeah, I think the 4 is your likeliest winner, and then probably some combination of 5, 6, and 1.
All right, and then race 8, the test.
Nothing clever for me here. I mean, I really struggled to distinguish between the 1 Emery and the 4 Ways and Means. I probably give a slight nod to Emery. I think that simply Ways and Means is a big hype horse that always takes a bunch of money, and I think you get better value for Emery. But I view them very similar, so I kind of struggled here. I did not like Denim and Pearl. She won't make any of my tickets. The last race was very poor, and I struggle to make sense where that came from. And I don't actually entirely hate Brightwork getting back to a sprint. So if I was going to use an additional horse out of the side of the top 2, it would be Brightwork instead of horses like My Main Squeeze or Denim and Pearls.
You did an amazing job of using both Josh and my talking points. That was like exactly what both of us said if you combined them two.
All right, and then race 9, the Lure.
Race 9 is the day that I finally get even for all the money that Tyler Gaffalione cost me with that stupid ass ride on Irish Aces last out, where he waited way too long to get in the clear and finish with a bunch of run and ran a racetrack. So this is a harder race than that one, but I think that disappointment I think is going to factor into his price here. So I do like Irish Aces in this race. The other horse I like is what is I assume going to be your favorite, the number 9, More Than Looks. I always am a little bit hesitant to bet horses off these huge layoffs, exiting Breeders' Cup races. They always get overbet, and this likely may not be the target. But the BC Mile race was extremely good. I mean, this colt ran into some extremely talented colts and fillies, in horses, Master of the Seas, Modge, Casa Creed. I mean, extremely accomplished runners. And to be only 2 lengths back while breaking from the parking lots in a 1 turn mile or a typed turn mile, 2 turns at Santa Anita, it was a great race. So if More Than Looks runs that back, I think he wins. If not, or if this is just a prep or whatever else, then I like Irish Aces.
And I think you already gave your thoughts on the Troy, right?
Yep, I think it's Cogburn's race to lose. Nobody beats Cogburn except for Cogburn, but if he does bounce or regress, then I think it gets wide open. And I'm not super interested in like the second, third, and fourth choices here. I think you can look outside of them.
Awesome. Well, that's going to do it for us. Obviously, check us out at onthewronglead.com, at wrong_lead on Twitter. I'm at Cherry Drank. Caleb's at Caleb WVU. Mark is at 2 Turns. I'm going to be away for most of the weekend, but if you guys are in Saratoga, both Mark and Caleb will be there this weekend. There's like a star-studded cast of people who are going to be at Saratoga. I think Colin is going to be up there as well from Trust the Profits. I think Mark, you might be doing a show with him this week, so
Yep.
make sure to check that out.
Actually, in like 4 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, hey, we got the timing down, and I got the timestamps for Cobb, so you can come back and read this. But yeah, we'll catch you guys next week at a normal time, probably at Thursday. And yeah, let's make some money this weekend.